Good evening and welcome to the first Inside Government show for the spring 2021 semester here at Cayuga Community College. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. This is a show that's broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. As with the fall semester, we have changed a little bit about how we operate here at the college, following SUNY directives and health protocols. So we only do one show each Tuesday and Thursday, and instead of doing an Inside Government and be on the front page, we're spreading those out. We're also front-loading the schedule despite last week's water main and snowstorm, but to allow students who direct, produce, and tape these shows to front-load their schedule so that we'll end in the beginning of April, though we are looking to, instead of the end of May, though we are starting to look at a Zoom forum for the Auburn Enlarged School District because they have elections this year, and we'll talk a little bit about that with our first guest. And as I said last week, we had hoped to bring you the mayor and then also Kathleen Cuddy, the Director of Public Health. We're rescheduling her. The mayor will be with us on Tuesday, but we are delighted to have in the studio our first guest for the spring 2021 semester, Superintendent of Schools Jeff Pirozzolo. He is working to get students back in the classroom 5 days a week. He's also got on his plate some budget dilemmas as well as an issue that has come up more recently, and that is the renaming of Auburn High School for Harriet Tubman. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Now, I thought I was the second, sounds like I was the third guest this year.
You know, public health always takes the precedence.
So I wasn't, I thought I just got named to be first.
You were named. Well, it's usually you and the mayor are tied for first. But
okay.
I think Ms. Cuddy, well-deserved, is, as we joke, the one call you don't want to get is from her.
I speak to her, trust me, way too much. So
let's start off. Talk about where we are health-wise. How are you, your staff? How are they all doing? You made a decision in December because the infection rate was getting that boomerang effect from Thanksgiving and from Christmas to not go back until I think January 19th.
Yeah.
Not that that's not tattooed on many parents' minds. But how is everybody doing in the district overall from your perspective?
Now we're doing much better. Back when we closed down, our infectious rate, we were getting 30 cases a day, or a week, I'm sorry. We were getting about 30 cases a week between students and staff. The issue was the number of quarantine. We had a couple of days at Casey Park, we only had 50 kids showing up to in person because of the number of quarantined students. But then it became the staff was affected by that. So
you made this decision before the county made the recommendation. Auburn was ahead of, I know some schools when Aileen McNabb-Coleman and Kathleen Cuddy, the chair of the legislature and health director, both said, let's see if we can close down a little bit longer. You had made that decision before that.
Correct, yeah.
Do you think that reduced your numbers?
I think a lot of things did. I don't think it was just me closing the schools down, but we had to get through the holiday season, and we knew that there was going to be a spike. We saw a big spike after Thanksgiving. We knew there was going to be a big spike during Christmas break as well as New Year's, so that's why we picked the date we did.
So what's your positivity rate roughly now?
We are under 4% now.
And is that the lowest you've been?
Yeah, and we're averaging 6 cases a week right now.
And do you think the worst is over now?
Oh, boy, I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. This variant, you get a little bit nervous about the new strands, but hopefully with people getting vaccinated now, hopefully it's in the rear window. Do
you have concerns right now? Obviously, we saw some great photos from Tampa in the last 48 hours. That is that state in Florida. Are you worried about a Super Bowl push that you'll have more cases in the coming weeks just because of that?
Well, I'll tell you.
Or do you think people are smarter now?
Well, I'll tell you, thank God Buffalo Bills weren't in the Super Bowl. Because if they were, I think the parties would have been a lot bigger.
I think one of your school board members has just decided to fire you just because. I think if Sam Giangreco just heard you say Buffalo, he's like, "What do you mean?"
He knows I'm a Dolphins
No, but the reality would have been
we would have had bigger parties if Buffalo had been in the Super Bowl, especially the whole state of New York. But I still think there were parties, but I think they were limited.
So are we in a race right now, from your perspective? I'm going to ask the same question of Kathleen Cuddy. Are we in a race right now between getting people to continue to do the right thing, get vaccinated if you can, if you fall into those categories, and then just quarantine fatigue, where people are just tired? I mean, there's only so many times you can, well, not in my case, cook for yourself, because that,
Right.
but there's only so many times you can't. I was talking to somebody the other day. Last time we did a business lunch was March.
Oh yeah, last March, almost a year.
Yeah. So, is that the race right now, that you got to keep people focused, get them vaccinated? Is that your worry?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And we're, for educators, we're lucky because we started our vaccination process a month ago. So, you know, we can see the end line with vaccines because my staff actually started last week getting their second dose, and the majority are going to be getting them starting today till next Tuesday. So if we can just take it easy and continue to do what we're doing and stay safe, hopefully the spring is going to bring a lot of excitement to people.
So can you mandate vaccines for your staff?
I cannot.
That is only allowed legally to be done by either the federal government or the state government.
Correct.
Do you expect some direction on that at some point?
Well, you know, because we talk about the vaccine for children coming into school now, how they have to have their vaccines done. This one's a tricky one, though. You know, with COVID versus measles and mumps and those type of vaccines, I don't know how they would be able to really mandate that.
Do you think it's going to take more science and more time to analyze before?
I do. I think people are nervous. You know, everybody has the choice whether they want to get the vaccine, but I think there are a lot of people that are very nervous because this did come quickly.
Right. Do you have a number what you think right now of your this is open for schools. This is open to everyone in the schools from a staff perspective, just not teachers, correct?
Correct. It's all employees.
Do you have an idea of how many have gotten vaccinated?
We are definitely over 50%.
Are you happy with that number?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to shoot for 70, 80, 90%, of course. And we could be up there. I don't know exactly every single person that's been vaccinated because I don't want to violate any HIPAA laws and ask people who are doing it.
Well, some could get vaccinated before you could keep records.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you don't have a really...
Correct.
Unless they come forward and tell you...
Right. We know we've signed up about 190, but that was about the fourth week into it.
Staff of how many?
600.
And then are your staff having a difficulty getting the vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, again, they run out quickly. So as soon as I get the email that we've got a clinic, I send it out right away with a robocall, and within usually 10 minutes, they're closed out.
So while you can't direct people to do this, I have heard from other staff from a social distancing perspective that you are pushing people in the sense, here's the option, this is where it's available, if you can do it, just go do it.
I just provide them with the opportunities to be able to do it.
Did you get vaccinated?
I did.
Okay.
I get my second dose on Saturday.
Gotcha. So let's go back to the hybrid system for a second.
Sure.
So how many students students are there in the Auburn School District?
About 4,100.
So of the 4,100, about how many of them are in 2 days a week right now? The alternate 2 days a week?
I probably about 2,200.
So about half of your students are totally hybrid,
Correct.
or totally remote, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the numbers are getting up, but it peaked during that infectious rate. We are actually seeing it coming down. So we do have parents now calling saying, can we go back to the hybrid model, which is great. That's what we want to see.
Will you let people go remote if they want? I know there was a period of time you were going to go back to parents. I think there was one of those phone calls that you send out and you said, because of this peak.
Correct.
You knew what the direct result was going to be. Everybody was going to say, for the most part, I'm not sending my kid back.
Correct.
Can somebody go back now and say, listen, I would like to go remote, or is that something you're putting off for right now?
So it's different at the elementary and secondary level. Our secondary is more self-directed remote learning. So a lot of our students can go back and forth at the secondary. Elementary is a little bit more complicated because we have the remote academy. So I have 21 teachers that are designated as remote teachers for remote students. Those classrooms are full. So if a child at the elementary wants to go remote, all they pretty much get is what is in Google Classrooms, those videos, the work, the tapes, those type of pieces, and they can still communicate with their teacher.
If you go to the academy, how many days a week is that, and how many hours a day? If you go to the academy.
The remote academy is, again, it's still 4 days a week with Fridays, different type of things going, some small group instruction, but a lot of planning. And it's different for all the remote teachers. Sometimes they do whole group instruction. Sometimes they're doing small group instruction. But that runs all day long.
Okay. So someone who might be doing the remote academy might be getting more online hours.
Correct.
And instruction.
Correct.
Okay. So 2 weeks ago in one of, again, these calls, and you've done a magnificent job of communicating with parent. I can only say this from a parent's perspective. You do, unless I'm just on your favorite call list, you do regular calls, whether it's a Sunday night or unless there's a newsworthy event. But I thought I caught 2 weeks ago that your goal is to return to 5-day-a-week sooner than later. And when I took sooner than later is like March or April.
Oh boy, I hope so. So my goal is, and again, Guy, this is Jeff talking. This isn't the health department. It's not the governor's office. But the way I look at it is, if we get the majority of our staff vaccinated, the ones that choose not to do it, again, that's their choice. I'm fine with that. But they know that they're still working, and they're not fearful of that. Once we're all vaccinated, I don't understand why some of these restrictions can't be lifted, even from 6 feet to 3 feet, so that our kids can move their desks a little bit closer, still wearing their face masks. But we're going to have to start lifting the restrictions soon, because what's going to be different on March 15th than on September 1st? If everyone's gotten a chance to be vaccinated, just like they will in September, what's the difference? We got to get the kids back to school.
So I take that is not your decision. That is a gubernatorial or a federal decision.
Correct. The governor's got to lift those restrictions. The two things that keep us from coming back 4 or 5 days a week is the social distancing guidelines and us only being allowed to put 22 students on a 66-passenger bus. Those guidelines are the two that really need to change in order for us to move to a 4 and a 5 day week.
So if they change social distancing alone and not buses, that's still a problem for you?
It's still going to be a problem, but we might have more parents willing to transport their kids.
Okay.
So, I do think we've really got to get that social distancing from 6 feet to 3 feet.
So the other confusing piece with all of this with COVID has been this issue of sports. Mm-hmm. And the governor has allowed some return to high school sports. What's he allowing?
So we are allowed to return back to our high-risk sports with different guidelines and protocols in place. So the governor pretty much allowed high-risk sports, but only if your local health department approved it.
And so in your case, there could be a different policy in Onondaga County where this show is shown and a different policy in Cayuga County.
Which they are, completely different.
Okay. So let's complicate this a whole lot. And then we'll get to music.
Yeah, there you go.
So as I understand it, you have 3 seasons that you can still do.
That are left, yes.
That are left. So what sports are left to be played?
So right now we had swimming and bowling going on.
Okay.
And now what we've started up on February 1st is we actually started up basketball and hockey. So those 2 sports have started. The other winter sport, of course, wrestling.
Which is close and dear to your heart. As people who watch this, your son's a phenomenal wrestler.
Well, and I appreciate it.
And I don't know who's going to miss it more next year.
Mom and Dad are really missing it, let me tell you.
But that could be bumped to, so you have 3 different periods. You got the fall, which is football, and what?
Volleyball and cheerleading.
Which could come back you could run 3 sports seasons in the next 4 months.
Correct.
Do you have the capacity to do that?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We'll be okay with it. But the wrestling, of course, is one of your highest high-risk sports. And so Onondaga County, a lot of the Section 3 large schools decided to push that to the springtime to give us more time to plan so that we can do it in a safe way. So, but we do have basketball, hockey are going on right now, and football will be starting up second week in March, along with volleyball and cheerleading.
And can people go to watch these or no?
There are no spectators right now for our winter season. We're limiting, again, we're making it great for kids, and I know it's for parents as well. We are live streaming all of our home events.
So you would lock out people from Holland Stadium?
Well, that's different. We don't have anything going on at Holland Stadium.
No, but if you went to football?
If we go to football, there'll probably be a whole nother set of parameters.
Okay.
Because, again, it's outside. It may be a little bit different.
So let me ask you one of several viewer questions. Most of them were, by the way, on Harriet Tubman. We'll get to those at the end of the show. Parent asks, why are we spending all this time looking at sports and not getting kids back in the classroom?
A lot of our superintendents have the same question. We get the guidance from the governor. When the governor allows us to do something, we do it because it provides opportunities for children.
But if you were basically told by, forget Luca for a second,
Yeah.
I understand, but I understand as a parent, if you were told by the governor, we're not doing sports this spring, most superintendents would be fine with that?
Yes, I believe we would be. Again, our goal right now is to get our children back into school 4 or 5 days a week. Yes, and provide extracurricular activities the best we can. But our main goal is to get the kids back into school. But when the governor gives us an opportunity for children to be able to partake in sports or music or drama, we're going to jump on that as well, as long as we can do it safely.
So my corollary to this is there's a story in today's Citizen about music, and where are we with those programs? Where are we with band and programs like that?
So Senator Helming has written a bill. I got to put a quote in that, and I think it's only fair that we look at our drama, our music.
So
programs.
we're not allowing that.
Well, we are, but we still have guidelines of 12 feet. And what they're asking is, can we
Tough with an orchestra.
Right. Can we loosen those restrictions? Because marching band, if we could shrink them in a little bit more, we can get more things done. Same thing with singing and plays and those type of things. We're still
chorus.
at 12 feet away.
So do you even have chorus at this stage?
They do innovative things.
Okay.
And I'm actually meeting with Kristen Shepard and Steve Gamba on Friday to talk about how we're going to proceed with drama. And again, of course.
And they're with your music program.
I'm sorry, yes, there are with our music. And Mike Miller.
They do some wonderful things.
Right, and he has been going with marching band and practicing all along until we went through our shutdown.
So with all of this, you've added the hybrid, the remote learning academy. This had to have, did you have to add additional instructional staff?
We added a couple of positions is all. We pretty much did this with existing staff and being very creative.
So you haven't had to have a...
No, we added a couple of positions.
Even with 2,000 students being done remote, roughly 1,800, whatever the number. But do you expect the federal government, forget the current COVID budget, I know there were some issues with the governor's budget, and we'll get to that in a second as well. Do you expect to be reimbursed for your COVID-related... So, for example, in the case of sports, you may have to do more testing of students.
Correct.
And players and coaches and all that. There's a cost for that.
Correct.
Do you expect Washington or Albany to fund that for you or reimburse you?
We hope so.
Okay.
You know, hopefully with the new stimulus package. Again, we're waiting to see what happens. You know, Governor Cuomo put out the budget. Of course, you saw Auburn had about a $500,000.
Well, I have some. I'm going to. No, we'll go there right now. But just one quick final on this. In the current COVID relief package that the Biden administration is pushing, do you see anything in that case that will trickle down to places like Auburn?
I do believe it will, but it depends what the governor does if he plays that shell game and still takes that money and keeps it for the state versus the schools. Because a lot of times what happens is we get COVID money, but he takes it away in a different aid form so that he can still balance his state budget.
So I looked at the budget numbers, and I'm confused.
We all are.
So let's start with the basic number. He went from $29 billion to $31 billion in spending. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
1.4 million of that $2 billion with a B is going to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
That leaves still 600 million, roughly, round numbers, available. But one of the remaining districts in the state, 1/4 of them, including Auburn, are getting cuts.
Correct.
So how much are you getting cut from what you had as an aid package last year?
About $500,000.
Okay. So I'm not a great math wizard, but I can figure this out. You can't pay your bills, your current bills, unless you're going to go into your fund balance to do that.
Correct.
So where's the district right now in their planning session, other than most likely, Lisa Green, your business administrator, her hair's on fire? How do you deal with that 500? Do you have first of all, do you have an explanation for the logic? So I think Union Springs to a lesser degree, Moravia to a lesser degree, I think those were the ones.
Us three, yeah.
Three. The rest, everybody got increases.
Correct.
Why did you get a decrease?
Again, we received the lowest amount in foundation aid per pupil, and they're still cutting us. And there is no logic. I think small city school districts, the way the formula plays out, there's no equity with it. But what does that $500,000 mean? That's not our shortfall for next year, because there's inflation.
Right.
We have salary increases, so
you have contractual agreements.
Oh yeah, we're going to be looking at about a $2.5 million deficit. I will tell you one thing, Guy. We did a great job budgeting last year. When COVID came in March, we worked with our vendors and we worked at renegotiating contracts. So we did save a lot of money. We did have good savings in health care as well. But yeah, we'll be going to fund balance to balance our budget.
So do you think you have to go to fund balance, or do you think you may also have to do some staffing cuts?
Well, we'll probably go mostly to fund balance, because we're well over the 4% right now, because that's what we did with our rollover. Is we knew this was coming. We knew there was at the time around a $5 billion deficit. Now it's crept up to 15, 16 billion. So we do have that money.
Or so we're told.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we're told. So what I don't understand what the governor did is he's already told us that he's expecting in the stimulus package to either get $6 billion, but hopefully get $15 billion for the state. When he came out with his budget runs, he didn't put either one of those figures in.
So if the federal government does come up with that money, do you think that will trickle down?
Oh, I think it will.
I mean, it'll be proportionally less, but
right. I think we'll get money, and I think that's how the governor can say he's the savior, is by doing that.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to ask about two questions.
Sure.
One deals with you're still going to have a budget vote, presumably in May?
Correct.
And I know you're going to come here at the end of March to
Right.
do your normal explanation. Who's up this year for the school board?
For the school board this year, it will be Sam Jean Greco, Kathy Rhodes, and Ian Phillips.
And do you have every expectation that all three of them are running for re-election?
We really haven't even sat down and really talked about it. I would imagine so. I haven't heard that none of them.
So when can people start circulating petitions?
That will be coming in March. We'll start getting that information out to everyone.
And I know we're going to try to do a Zoom Auburn Large School District forum here with Jeremy Boyer. What are the qualifications to run for school board?
18 years and older and a resident for 30 days?
So that's qualifications. What qualities are you looking for?
There's one quality I look for in any board member, and that's the love of children and focusing on what makes children successful.
So I want to leave the most controversial issue, believe it or not, to last. There has been and I say this controversial because I don't think I've seen more letters to the editor other than an election season than on this particular subject. Mm-hmm. And I've received a number of emails for people to ask questions. Try to get through all of them. But this is the question of renaming Auburn High School after Harriet Tubman. First of all, how did this come about?
Actually, a student brought it to our Board of Education. A student, and she's a student rep, Jane Alver, asked the question.
Student leadership, Cayuga,
bright
young lady. And
yeah, she's very bright, very intelligent, well-spoken. She brought the concern up to the board, and the board decided to move forward and start exploring.
So what's the process?
So the process is once that is brought to the board's attention, they have to follow their policy. So they've already activated the policy. They did a resolution to start the process up. Next part of the policy is they're going to have to do a notice and be able to take anybody that wants to do any type of nomination. So they have to set a time frame, and anyone.
So it could be open for any name.
They have to set the guidelines. The board has to set the guidelines whether they want it just to be with the high school or if it's any building in our school district. We have to advertise that. We have to pick a date. And then anybody that would want to do any type of nomination.
So is this a 6-month process, or is this a multi-year process?
This is up to the board to set the timeline.
And they haven't gotten to that point yet.
They have not gotten to the point.
So so a couple of things. So this is almost a cyclical issue. About 15 years ago, there was this whole conversation, and I will tell you that I thought several people handled it very badly in the district when they went, and frankly, they stereotyped. Putting Harriet Tubman just at Genesee and did not open up other names. Obviously, Seward was a different issue because it was named.
It was already
Or you
named,
may have
right.
some contractual. It's somebody. I think Casey is. You have Casey because the family donated the property with a condition. But there are others. There's a Wasco. There's Herman. There's whatever. The middle schools. This came up 15 years ago. This is coming back up again. Where do you see the process where? When you say the board sets the policy, could the board set the policy that only they make that decision, or it could go to a public referendum?
Right now, it's the policy is the board will make the determination based off of a committee that they pick and form. They will go based off of their recommendation.
And are you surprised in the initial 3 weeks how many letters of the editor, how many online comments have been generated by this one student making a suggestion?
No, it is controversial, and again, I think everybody has their own opinion. My thing is we need to do what the community wants, and if our children in our community.
Well, and some people would say in the community, playing the devil's advocate here, would be that you should go to a public referendum.
And absolutely, the board could choose to do that.
Or you could go to the old, which most likely was what should have been done 15 years ago, put 3 names in a hat, and whoever draws out of the 3 elementary schools, that was it.
Yeah, well, I
was
wasn't part of the process.
No, I'm
sorry.
No.
And again, I wasn't even in Auburn working as an assistant
but
principal.
There are some leftover issues from 15 years ago.
From what I've heard, I understand that. Again, I think the board, they talk about doing a process where they're going to they want to hear from all the kids, not just from the high school. They want to hear K through 12.
So this could be a very elongated process.
It very well could be. But
when do you think the board will set a timeline for a timeline?
They may even have the discussion tonight at the board meeting. I'm not really sure if that's going to get brought up, but it may.
So the last viewer question I would have, again, consolidating many that came in, is this a distraction? I'm not saying it's not important, but there are other issues facing the board right now. Returning because of COVID, trying to get students in 5 days a week. You have a budget where you just got a cut of $500,000 that you had just said from the governor. You have a whole myriad of issues. Is the issue of this naming going to suck the air out of other discussions that you have to have?
I guess it goes down to prioritizing, right? My number one thing is I need to get the kids back into school. And that's what I'm focused on. The board chooses to go through this right now. Again, they have the right to do that. There is a lot going on, though, and it does add more to their plate.
I'm not asking you your opinion of should it be done or not unless you want to give that opinion, but do you think this is something that really could be put off because you've got to deal with these other issues? And I'm literally talking about getting students in 5 days a week and budget.
Yeah, and I think the board will make that determination. I think you'll hear conversation. And like I said, I want whatever the community wants. It's their high school. I serve the children. I serve the parents. Whatever this community wants, I'm all for. And, I think the board will do it the right way, where they will take everybody's suggestions, the nominations, and whether they do a survey.
So this could be a
or
much
vote.
more complex process.
I think it will be, and I think you don't think how big it is because the policy is so short, but there's a lot to it.
Okay. We're going to have you back in about a month to talk about where you are on the budget, and hopefully you'll get hopefully the stimulus package will have either passed or failed, and you'll have a number from Washington that coming through Albany. But our guest has been Jeff Pirozzolo, the superintendent of schools. Hopefully he'll also be able to go watch some wrestling matches by then.
I hope so. I hope so.
Good luck on that front. Thanks for being with us today. As we said, we will be back with shows every Tuesday and Thursday. This Thursday, we'll have Auburn YMCA's Executive Director Chris Nucerino in to talk about what his not-for-profit is doing, especially in this COVID world, as well as what they do locally and what their plans are for summer, including summer camps. Next week, we will have the mayor in with us. He'll be giving us a city update on the 18th, and we hope to bring you a new 50th Senate District Senator John Mannion, who will be in the studio on Thursday to give an Albany update. In fact, we might be doing a remote show as well as a tape show that day. We'll have in the coming weeks Cayuga County Legislative Chair Aileen McNabb Coleman will be here in 2 weeks from today, as well as Auburn Police Chief Sean Butler, who is retiring this year and giving us an update on what is going on within his department. And finally, we'll have Keith Cutler, the Executive Director of East Hill Medical, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary, in to give us an update on what they are doing. You can send your thoughts and ideas for questions to cozguytho@aol.com or 141 Dunning Avenue to my attention, Auburn, New York 13021. For Cayuga Community College and this telecom department, I want to wish you a safe evening and a great tomorrow, and be safe. And we will see you back here in the studio on Thursday.